There's an element of being a fast follower. I guess the skill around that is being learning how to learn and pick up skills, pick up new ideas.
The biggest differentiator in business is the human capital. Businesses can replicate pricing, product, competitive structures.
Looking at the flip side as well, I think the skills-based approach also has another really important benefit, because I know
If we had a skills stack assessment as ubiquitous as our cover letter and resume, wouldn't that be a great insight to say, well, these are actually all my validated or assessed skills?
Welcome to another episode of Relearning Work, where we dive into the future of learning and work. In each episode, we bring you conversations with leaders from industry and education to challenge assumptions, propose ideas, and share learnings as we all navigate this world that is being reshaped by agentic AI. Now, whether you're an educator, a student, or a business executive looking to stay ahead in this rapidly changing landscape, there is something here for you. I'm your host, David Yip. And today I'm joined by Siobhan O'Sullivan, a leader at the intersection of technology, business growth, and talent development. She's currently the Chief Operating Officer of the Australian Computer Society, which represents almost 50,000 members of Australia's technology community across industry, government, and education. Her influence extends beyond the ACS, as she is also on a number of advisory boards, including for a fintech, Wych, Silicon Beach, Australia, the Enterprise Ireland Group, and she has over 25 years of experience across tech, financial services, logistics, retail, importantly across both small business and large enterprises. Her insights span the entirety of Australia's innovation ecosystem. Siobhan's passion for developing future talent is evident through her work with BrainSTEM, Jain School of Global Management, and the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. She's a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. She has an MBA from Macquarie University, and impressively, she's a black belt in Hap Ki Do. So welcome, Siobhan. That's quite a background.
It is. Thank you so much, David. Thanks for having me on the show.
That's fantastic. So that's a very wide range of experiences, and from tech, in education. You mentioned before in our conversation security as well. Can you give us a bit of the story of how you got here and now leading the Australian tech community as part of ACS?
Yeah, I look at the abridged version. I went to a fairly humble school when I was in high school, and the careers advisor, I think it was 20 questions, and when I completed them, her summation, I think it was verbatim, was you tells me you want to carry a briefcase, wear a suit, and tell people what to do. And with your personality, I think you should do hospitality management. So that was my first foray. Thought I would run or own restaurants or hotels. And then once I'd graduated, realized I didn't want to bring up children in the back of a kitchen. Not that I had them, but my future family. So I pivoted careers and got into human resources and industrial relations and did my second degree at night. And then when I finished that, I moved to Ireland, worked at Guinness, came back, worked with Woolworths in their supply chain division, moved into mortgage broking in a tech business, which was my own with my ex-husband, and then moved into the CEO role for the peak body for mortgage broking, then pivoted to scaling a fintech for an Indian founder. Et cetera, et cetera. I'm probably, in short, David, a fan of saying yes to opportunities, particularly things that are interesting. And I'm
Yeah.
probably quite good at being comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's fantastic. I think that leads really well into something that I always ask my podcast guests, which is to get into the right mindset and to get into the right mindset to be able to see opportunities, right? And I think one of the most important aspects of getting the right mindset is to understand our assumptions. You've gone into, retail, tech, mortgage broking. So these are quite diverse opportunities. Can you think of what kind of assumptions that we need to be aware of so we can see all these opportunities around us that can be quite different to what's directly in front?
I'm actually going to leverage a quote from Toni Collette, one of our famous Australian actresses. She said, invest the time in getting to know yourself, because if you do, you'll have a much better relationship with the world around you. And I think that bodes really well. Your vocation should very much align to your values, your DNA. Vocation and your passions have to be aligned. So I'm very curious. I like solving problems. I loved working in the blue collar industry. My mother and father were both factory workers, so delivering good outcomes in that space felt really powerful. Loved small business owners in mortgage broking. So customers, small business, they're two of my passion points. Solving business problems, another passion point. So yeah, I don't know. You just got to know yourself and then apply that to the opportunities in front of yourself and not be constrained. I think we used to value people that had 30 years in banking or 30 years in retailing. And I think the diversity of thinking is really powerful when you have had diverse backgrounds. And that's what I try and bring to my opportunities.
That's so important, isn't it? Because there are so many opportunities. We're surrounded by them all the time, but we have to see them, and we have to think it's possible as well to grab them, to be able to do well in them. I talk to a lot of people who, particularly in the world of AI now, it's actually a very exciting technology. It brings a lot of exciting opportunities, but it can be quite scary as well because you see AI doing things that maybe you do all the time. I see it doing things that I do all the time. I go, wow, it does it arguably better and quicker. So once I get over the excitement of this technology, I think, oh, what am I going to do? you know. So yeah, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I suppose I'm a real apostle to the idea that the biggest differentiator in business is the human capital. Businesses can replicate pricing, product, competitive structures, but it's really hard. The longest sustainable advantage is documented in research, 7 years with your human capital. So for me, I still believe that to be the most evident part of a business. Get your team right, first who, then what. And then from that, you can, obviously thrive or hopefully thrive in your business based on other decisions. So when you overlay that with AI, uh, I don't believe straight away everyone's, the assumption, shall we say, that, oh, everyone's jobs are going to go and those sorts of things, because you still need people in organizations to engage with others. The tools that those people use, however, is critically important. How they are reskilled to use them, their curiosity to wanting to learn how to use them, and also having the time to actually, that adage of, in the business, on the business. Sometimes we're so busy doing our job, we sort of daggle a little bit in something or dabble a little bit, sorry. Sometimes you just need that time to say, actually, let me immerse myself in this with a lens of cybersecurity and a lens of data protection, but actually using some tools and testing and iterating with an acceptance that you can try something and it may not work. But we need to be curious. Definitely curious.
Absolutely, I think curiosity is so important. But getting into, I guess, curiosity, do you think it's a skill or it's an attribute? Some people are naturally curious, some people may not be so, but can it be nurtured? Can you actually build it up as a skill?
I, it's a good question. So I definitely think it's sometimes quite it's a personal style, but it can be encouraged, shall we say. Maybe not fully learned, but encouraged. And if I think about my experiences in business, allowing someone the space to try something and not get it right. Often organizational structures are very much around its finite resources, using company money to do something where we want you to get it right the first time always and not waste money, which I appreciate. But through that, you don't get innovative thinking, you don't get people trying different things. So you definitely
Yeah.
need to give space to that and show through leadership that you're also doing that. Super important to show that you can try something, even as an experienced operator in organizations after 25 years, that you can try something and not get it right. That's
Yeah.
allowed, as long as you're
Yeah.
managing the risk attached to that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really important for people to see that the leaders are doing it, and that it is okay to fail. In fact, make it visible that you failed on a couple of things, and how you manage that and how you use that to your advantage as a learning experience to improve and build enterprise capability. So, apart from curiosity, what other skills or attributes do you think people will need to be able to see the opportunities and benefit from the opportunities coming out from AI and all this disruption?
Well, I think obviously being aware, one of the hardest things in any organization is the forward. perspective. We know based on past behavior what we have done, but it's not always clear what the future holds. And I think we see that. I mean, I wake up every morning looking at my newsfeed to see what else is happening in the world overnight. So it
Yeah.
seems like the pace of change and things that are happening. So being interested, not just curious, but actually reading some of the dynamics at play. And some very clever people are then able to triangulate some of those market dynamics to better inform what's happening in their organization. So you have, in essence, in most things in life, you have leaders or you have followers. And being a fast follower is not a bad thing. It actually de-risks things that you're doing or the investment required. But the ability to say, we're going to pick a path and go in that direction by following some other business or example is super important as well. You need to choose to execute. So it's okay not to be at the front end of innovation, but definitely adopting things that come into market when you understand them to be beneficial to your organization, I think is inaction is our biggest risk.
Yeah, so there's an element of being a fast follower. I guess the skill around that is knowing how to learn, learning how to learn and pick up skills, pick up new ideas, pick up things very quickly.
Well, there's another adage I love as well, David. It says, if you're not disrupting your own business, somebody else is. And often in business, and I deeply love SMEs and entrepreneurial ventures and doing your own thing, and respect that this country is built and grows off the back of SMEs more than larger enterprises. Um, but those that are thriving today is no guarantee that you'll be thriving in 5 years' time. So you're constantly having to think about your organization, your business, your service, your customer, and how you can continue to, meet their needs, which are ever growing and ever changing customers, and then continue to ensure you can recruit people and pay bills and thrive.
Yeah. And when you're recruiting people, particularly now in this time, you've been in HR and human resources and talent for a while. Have you seen many changes in that? Because during, I guess, stable or more predictable times, and when you're managing growth, it's quite different to when you're managing transitions or transformations, or during very uncertain or unstable times. The type of people, the type of skills that you bring on board, and the mix inside the business. How would you think about it and help leaders plan for that?
Yeah, I think they're good. Different parts of a business's growth. I think, as I shared earlier, I'm very much an adage of first who, then what. So, for instance, if you and I both have a great attitude and growth mindset, and someone said, "I'd love you to build a childcare centre." Now, I haven't done that in my career, and I don't think you have either, David. But I'm pretty sure we'd get it done because we'd just muddle through. We'd ask the right questions. We'd work together as a team. So I do believe in attitude is the major amplifier of somebody's degree, credentials, certifications, or no formal skills. So for me, in answer to your question before, how was it changed or grown? I used to spend a lot of time in HR on looking at people's resumes, trying to see the personality, see the person coming off the page. I don't think because of volume of applications today that is the practice applied. Perhaps probably rarely has ever been the practice applied. And I only did it because I valued trying to get, I'd rather interview lots of people on the phone to start with, then face to face to get to that right pick, rather than have a resume stuck through an engine that gives out three attributes. And I think we are just talking before, the idea that resumes today, more often than not, are being curated with an AI engine. Recruitment companies, more often than not, are using AI engines to select and cull resumes. So we're just getting into really not an area I think is ideal for identifying the right talent. And again, we have traditionally used a degree or a Cert 4 or some credential plus some lived experience, when in actual fact what we're moving towards or should be moving towards is very much a focus on skills. Harder to do, but can be done. And there are
Yeah,
examples of that. Yeah.
yeah. Actually, that's a really, very, very interesting topic that I really want to dive deeper into this whole skills focus and skills based approach in hiring. There holds a lot of promise. People have been talking about it in the talent community for a little while now, and some are doing some very interesting things. But it's hard though, right? How do you
Yeah.
how do you actually describe these skills to begin with?
Yeah, well, you've got to do the hard lifting, heavy lifting, and we've got to be willing to change our approach to things and educate even people in the business that are responsible for recruitment, not just PNC or HR, but line managers and other team members. So let's just talk about, forget the front door to an organization. Let's talk about when you're in the organization. In my experiences, for a long time, we've done things such as, psychometric testing or leadership testing or assessments when you're in, to see where in the organization your executive are sitting with their skill sets. At a more, tactical level, we can do in the tech space, Sophia-based skills assessment,
Hmm.
using those frameworks to see where your tech team and associated roles are, and then working on a development plan. So we can
Sorry,
do that. Yeah.
for the audience, can you explain what Sophia is?
Yes, well, it's a good question actually, because I used to think it was a girl's name, David. So, so I asked a good question once. Like, well, who's Sophia? No, Sophia is the skills framework for the information age. So SFIA, and
Yeah.
it's a 20-year-old skills framework for predominantly the tech space and surrounding peripheral roles within tech to identify what skills and at what level you apply that skill within your role today. And more importantly, it allows you to also create a visibility of where you'd like to go based on a role or additional, perhaps the strategy of the organization. And then, ACS, for instance, is one of many organizations that then help you build out a development plan and can serve up content to bridge that gap. The reason that's interesting for me, because many organizations develop their talent internally at a skills level.
Hmm.
All you need to do is bring that to the recruitment end. So if
Hmm.
you had Sophia-based assessment in recruitment
Hmm.
to complement the Sophia insights you have within your team, within your organization, you've just elongated the
Hmm.
skills approach you have in an org. For some reason, we haven't yet bridged the idea that a cert, a degree, and 5 years experience, transform that as a recruitment vehicle to a Sophia, again, in tech or any other framework that's relevant for your industry at the P&C level, at the recruitment level. Just bring it forward.
So is Sophia, sounds like it's related to the skills taxonomy
Mhm.
approach that the Australian government has a national skills taxonomy program. How is that aligned with that whole big broader body of work?
Yeah, so the government utilises Sophia within their, I suppose, departments that have tech teams. It is the agreed framework in tech and in
Hmm.
cyber for assessing
Hmm.
cyber as well. And across other industries, there may be other frameworks that I'm not aware of. So I can only talk from my current experience here. But the government has that as a view. The government wants to move to skills-based hiring. And if you think about a great example in cyber, we have an emerging need for talent in cyber. We have aspirations of the government to be one of the most cyber safe countries by 2030, and a lot of
Hmm.
work is underway already from leadership from the government. You can't easily create talent, with a degree and 5 years experience in an industry where, it's just emerging, similar to AI, for instance.
Hmm.
So what's interesting when you break it down to a skills level, 80% of an accounts payable clerk,
Hmm.
which is getting more and more automated, accounts payable with
Hmm.
tech solutions, is 80% of the skill stack of a cyber analyst. So
Wow.
rather than trying to find net new, can we
Hmm.
identify potentially skills within a current role within your organization, whether it's being augmented, automated, partially automated or not, who wants to move their career? And
Hmm.
that we have obviously a tech skills gap in Australia, which has been well evidenced and researched. We could find people that could move into these roles, but unfortunately, until we apply a skills-based approach to that recruitment and to that
Hmm.
role, we're going to continue to say, oh, we need a degree, or we need these other traditional gates, which are
Hmm.
not solving our gap.
Experience.
Mm, yeah,
Mm.
we can do it.
So
It's harder, but we can do it.
so with the skills-based approach and the Sophia framework, it sounds like it's and you're saying connecting the recruitment side to the internal PNC or the human resources side, that underlying it's skills language, right? It's just talking a common language so that people who are hiring know and can communicate clearly with the people who have the skills.
Yeah, it's also more than that, David. It actually also brings to life a diversity, equity, inclusion policy, because you're not
Mm.
looking at Johnny's really good mates with Mary or Lily's really good mates with Mandeep. It's around who has the skills
Mm,
most aligned to that next opportunity within my organization. And it also,
mm,
that investment in your talent shows them that they know where they are and that you're
mm,
investing in their development to their next potential career opportunity. And tech, as you know as well, is quite nebulous. It's different to nursing. It's different,
mm,
to the legal profession or mortgage broking. You become a mortgage broker, you're a mortgage broker. It's just
mm,
about
mm,
maybe the loans or years of
mm,
experience. In tech, you can go into all different types of roles as and when your
mm,
career changes. And I think that's the really important part for our sector, that people do have a deeper understanding of the skills that they have, where
mm,
they could go, and it could be I'd
mm,
like to be in that role, or I'd like to earn 20,000 more.
mm,
I'd like to be in a multinational. I'd like to work in a data center.
mm,
When you have a starting point, a single data point of you as
mm,
a person of talent and where then you want to be, you
mm,
just map between the two and give
mm.
that resource the insight into what they need to do to go in that direction.
And I guess a common language between two otherwise very disparate industries or skills or competencies, so you can actually communicate. So the accounts payable person, you can map it to a cyber analyst. Two very different occupations, but you're using a common language so people can actually understand each other. Otherwise, you're describing accounts payable in accounting terms. You might not know that actually is a match to someone in cyber because cyber will talk about it in cyber terms. But it sounds like the skills taxonomy, the primary benefit and the importance of it is so that everyone's speaking the same language.
And a mobility of talent is what I think I'm
Yeah,
hearing you talk about. We
yeah.
had a great example in a government department where a librarian transitioned across into a tech development role.
Mm,
And
mm,
again, it was not unlike the Pareto rule of many skills that this person had was
mm,
transferable across, and there was a shorter amount of developmental and coaching within the role and often running. So if we do get to a more granular position of, and the analogy I've used, David, if you and I were from the same high school, we both did exactly the same degree, and we graduated, after 3 years, but, your parents ran a business and on the weekends you worked always in, say, the shoe store or the phone store, and you're fixing devices plus doing your degree, and
mm,
I hardly turned up to university because I love sleeping in or whatever the circumstances
mm,
are,
mm, mm,
you'd have to argue that our skills at the end of the 3 years would be different. But
mm.
on paper, we would still have the same degree and
Yeah.
maybe, looking for our first job or first full-time job. So I think
Yeah.
if we can get to that skills view of individuals, we're going to be in a
Mm,
much better position to get the right talent into the right
yeah.
organizations.
And we unlock much more sources of talent as well that otherwise you might be blind to, or just latent pools that just maybe sitting right there. um, Looking at the flip side as well, I think the skills-based approach also has another really important benefit, because I know if you're advertising a job based on the job title, right? Or you're advertising a job based on a specific kind of company name. Now, that assumes that the audience will know and understand that job title and has heard of the company, or at least know something about that industry. But I find that talking to a lot of these students, work with a lot of and career starters, job titles are being made up all the time, and a lot of job titles people have never heard of before, and
Yeah.
would never even think to apply to those roles, even if they can do the work. They just aren't thinking in that area. I'll pick one as an example: prompt engineering. It
Mm,
sounds very difficult and hard and technical, right?
mm.
But at the end of the day, it's using ChatGPT to write something, you know,
Yeah, I was going to
and
say, I've seen the executive assistant called the director of first impressions. So, yeah, no, I, I hear
yeah.
what you're saying. Look, are you proposing that we move away from, I suppose, innovative job roles or job roles altogether? I mean, we're a long way from being able to say these are just the skills that we'd love you to have.
Yeah.
It'd be great. I mean, we talk about recruitment. Traditionally, we've gone from a resume and a cover letter. That's sort of the
Mm,
two
mm,
hallmark documents that you try and transfer to somebody. If we had a skill stack assessment as ubiquitous
mm,
as our cover letter and resume, Wouldn't that be a great insight to say, well, these are
Yeah.
actually all my validated or assessed skills? That to me would be a really nice, powerful conversation for a recruiter to say, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I can see this person has this skill. So that would be in the tech space, particularly where I'd like to see the industry move to.
Yeah.
Not to say you remove your resume, not to say you remove your cover letter,
Yeah.
but definitely a skills conversation is
Yeah.
where we need to go.
And maybe even some proactive matching based on that, because so that you can bring opportunities to the attention of people that they may not have otherwise thought of before. Because I know, for example, talking to doing our research with early career starters, some people just wouldn't apply for jobs which they don't think they can do 100%. Like particularly, for example, women fall into that particular category unless you can actually, you're confident you can actually do 100% of the job, they just won't apply for it, right? Or people from certain cultures, this job is for a senior consultant. I don't think I'm senior, so I won't apply for it. But you can actually do the job. When you describe the skills for that role, oh yeah, I can do that.
Well, it's funny. I have a lived experience with that. So when I was very early in my career, when I moved into human resources, I spent 2.5 years with a council in southwest Sydney, and I was looking for my next role, and I was a HR officer, albeit I'd had an earlier degree and some lived experience and leadership opportunities within hospitality. And everything I went for, I was not getting cut through. And I finally just stopped reading the title and read the attributes or skills and end up applying for a HR coordinator role, managing a big team, company car, great salary. I was like, I can do this job. So I put my
Yeah.
hand up for it and I was
Yeah.
successful,
Yeah.
which surprised me, but
Yeah.
that I was offered a leadership role so quickly in my second, shall we say, pivot career. But yeah, I just stopped looking at titles and saying I could or couldn't do them. And
Yeah.
you referenced it's more of a female dynamic, this sense of I need to be 100% fit for the role. It's definitely not my approach to opportunities. And again, we spoke earlier, I have a martial arts background. We shared that I have a black belt. And I think it was about when I was about 30 or 35, it sort of dawned on me that perhaps my approach to my career was very much my approach to martial arts. And I don't mean fighting people. Um, I mean, when you are a white belt moving to your next belt, you're simply looking at what skills do I need to learn, demonstrate, and present, and therefore put myself forward for that next belt. Nervous that you may not attain the belt, particularly as you get higher and higher up. And the gi in martial arts, for those that haven't done any, is a sign of equality. There's no boy or girl, there's no rich or poor, there's no color of skin. Everyone wears the same gi. You step forward, you demonstrate, and if you're fortunate, you get selected for the next belt. I applied that same lens in business. I didn't see business through a lens of gender. I didn't see, you can't go for that unless you're 100% ready. I mean, I just wouldn't have even thought that was a serious
Yeah.
consideration. It's like, you want the
Yeah.
job, go for it. And
Yes.
that is a bit of a flywheel for that language of imposter syndrome. And I find
Yes.
that interesting as well. I mean, every job I've gone for that's been a stretch is by definition pushing me outside my comfort zone. So
Yeah.
if you wanted to think about that as an imposter kind of approach, then sure. But I'm a big fan of that. Don't do
Yeah.
safe moves. Do stuff that
Yeah.
stretches you.
Yeah. Well, that's but then that very very first experience where you went through a lot of, I guess, applications and didn't get anywhere, and then you decided to try something new, and then got somewhere. So that gave you the confidence. Like, oh, this approach actually works, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, it just made
next
sense to
time you
me.
do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I think that's the part that's most difficult for a lot of people. Some people will make that jump, others won't, or will take a long time to.
Well, I think it also bodes, David, for me, if you're going to continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome, sometimes that's not a smart way to go. So after a
Yes.
few, weeks or months of trying, I thought I have to do something differently to get a
Yeah.
different outcome. So that's always been my approach to if you're trying to solve a problem in business, you sometimes have to rethink it to go about it a different way.
Yeah. Now, I want to sort of talk about an adjacent area. So, skills, acquiring skills. You mentioned before in the example, if we're two same university students, but you approach it differently, and I was working part time. There's a increasingly popular trend in, at least in developing skills around this whole earn while you learn model. In certain sectors of education, it's nothing new. Like in TAFE, vocational apprenticeships has been there since the beginning. But in universities, it's actually something relatively novel. Earn while you learn is something that is gaining popularity, and for obvious reasons. How do you think about that in terms of acquiring skills? Yes, it applies to career starters, but equally, people who are working at the moment, you have to be able to earn while you learn, right? Very few people can stop what they're doing and take 6 months, a year off to go and do a course.
Well, it's so again, when people say I've had 25 years of experience, I hear I'm old. So when I when I finished school, the Ducks of our school, was offered a scholarship with BHP, which was 6 months at university, 6 months in the office, 6 months, 6 months. So 6 years to get a degree finished, but 3 years of lived and work experience within the company.
Mm,
It was very normal to have what we described, or I colloquially called, a sandwich degree.
mm,
You're part at the uni, part off. And, I think over time, I mean, everything's a business. The university sector is a huge business. And respectfully, I think if you're looking at the opportunities within the campus, you might say, well, if we do that, some people don't finish their degree. I, as a business, don't get full share of wallet of that learner, because
mm,
after 2 years they might choose to just continue working full time and forego graduating in their degree. So making
mm,
degrees full time
mm,
is a smarter decision in the confines of a campus
mm,
to
mm,
get full share of wallet. Yes?
mm, mm,
So if we look at this challenge across the entire ecosystem of graduate, high school through to, the learning pathways into a
mm,
workplace, Earn While You Learn has been a model applied before to great success. It is something we need to bring back, particularly in non-traditional, shall we say, blue-collar industries, where, as you identified through VET, it happens quite regularly. Employers are, I think, encouraging of the idea of having people work within their organisation as they're learning. So we see ACS is in a privileged role to assist the government with skills migration for those choosing
mm,
Australia as a destination based on their tech qualifications. And one of the things we see from other jurisdictions is a really strong appetite to do an undergraduate, then do a master's, without actually having secured much lived experience in a tech
mm,
role.
mm,
And that is
mm,
valued in other jurisdictions. But in our market, having an undergraduate, then some work prior to doing a master's tends to be the approach. A master's is to try and round out both your undergraduate and work experience. So we do need more people on the tools working, like getting
mm.
experience within an office or a role or a small business. So yeah, I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
that and solving for it.
How do we do that though? Because earn while you learn, um, it, because one thing I'm thinking about is the white collar and the degree world versus like the trades and apprenticeships. It is coming together, but it needs to come together a lot faster. Good thing is there's the universities accord and the reform activities going on. There's harmonization between the two sectors. That's a fantastic start, much needed. But how do we accelerate that so we get earn while you learn across both, and we not just across both, but we then use the opportunity to really modernize it and really scale it up and apply the digital lens across it as well.
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted, and I think you're right, it is hard. So let's talk first about the skills. If we were to, and the universities accord, if we were to, within the tech space, align learning outcomes under the Sophia framework within the vet space and in degrees, which an element of that happens already, so it aligns to certain roles or entry-level roles or more experienced roles, you would then have an easier way of matriculating from a Cert 2, a Cert 3, 4 diploma, Dip of IT into a bachelor's program over time. So I think that's one of the first things we need to do. Within a school environment, having year 11 and 12, having students access to Cert 2 and Cert 3s as part of their final examination that contributes to the overall mark. So there are opportunities for students to do a vet course, but if their school, and I'll talk about New South Wales approach, ATAR, which is your
Mm-hmm.
final mark to allow you to get into university, some of those vet pathways don't contribute to an ATAR. So if you're a school that values ATARs, they discourage students from doing that. So delaying
Yeah.
that opportunity for a student to, so if we're integrating it, and NESA is the accrediting body in New South Wales, it should ideally have an examination format at the end, which is equitable, that can contribute to an ATAR. So fixing the high school option, making sure it's Sophia based, so you can then maybe go with matriculation into a diploma or a Cert 4,
Mm,
very short
mm,
period, get into a job, and then know with confidence in a year's time, whilst you're doing work, you might pick up a part-time degree. But the
yeah.
degrees being delivered part-time also need to be available. Again, share of wallet, if you do it part-time, sometimes students don't finish it. But when you're working full-time and studying part-time, the degree is then tax deductible as well.
Mm-hmm.
So these are
Mm-hmm.
all elements. I remember speaking to a really bright young man in Tasmania at last year's EdCat conference, which is coming up in a few weeks again. But the gentleman said to me, Siobhan, I've got a job now and I've got some certs, and do I really need a degree? And he was a
Mm-hmm.
skilled migrant from a different
Mm-hmm.
country of origin. And I said, well, if all you're looking for is a job today, then maybe no. But you've come to
Mm,
Australia, I'm assuming, to have opportunities for a future and a family, and improvements on perhaps where you grew up or how you grew up. And he said yes. I said, well, maybe the degree will be valuable in 5 years' time when you're looking to grow your career into leadership roles. So
mm,
don't think
mm.
about today, think about the 5, 10, 15-year plan, which is what you've set out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
get the job,
Mm.
great, but continue to study, continue to
Yeah,
learn.
yeah. Well, the continue to learn, the lifelong learning, I guess, is something that has to go on, is constantly updating and upskilling ourselves. Um, so one thing I think I heard you say before with high schools and Sophia is that the skills taxonomy is not just in the workspace, hiring people and skills assessments and whatnot. We need to bring that into the education system. Use that as an underlying, I guess, a foundational aspect to not just understand job candidates, but also career and education as well. Use those skills elements, the same language, not different language, not a different set for education, a different set for the workplace, the same set across education and the workplace. So we can actually map it across using a common understanding of each other.
That would be my advocacy, yes. And then we're all, as I say, singing from the same hymn book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so I guess moving to examples and specific examples of, I guess, good practices or innovative practices or really good case studies that you'd like to highlight of people who maybe have done skills-based hiring well or have collaborated between, I guess, education and industry well and are moving in the right direction that you think are breaking new ground or pioneering something. Can you maybe point to some examples to do with skills taxonomies or hiring or this kind of new approaches to looking at adapting to the AI world?
Yeah, okay. Large question there. So, I think in the Australian context, and let's take New South Wales as the largest state with the largest number of employees. The government, the Digital Skills Compact for New South Wales, I think, is a really great example of coming together. So that's the top
Mm,
10 employers by volume, working with the Department of Education, working, with brands such as Microsoft and the industry, relevant contributors, the Future Skills Organisation, Tech Council, ACS, to solve for the tech skills gap and the challenges around attrition in the vet space, attrition in the university space,
mm,
the idea that people would like to have a career in STEM. It's trying to solve for a range of challenges, and our commitment is from 2023 to 2030. So it's a 7-year play. You wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago. Industries
mm,
didn't collaborate. So I think it's really encouraging for me that when you have audacious goals, that people put aside the idea that they can solve for it themselves, and we all come together and try and work to solve for that. So solving for it collectively is the first thing which I think I'd like to highlight. One of the first key, and we've done it, had 1 year under our belt under the 2023 to 2030 of achievements. And one of the key ones is a 20% alternative pathways recruitment
mm-hmm,
signatories. And
mm-hmm.
what does that mean? Taking 20% of your tech talent from a non-degree pathway. It seems small. It seems very like, oh, that's lowbrow or not that impressive. But just challenging people to think differently about recruitment is a big step
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
So that's a really great outcome. When you look at more longitudinal approach, I mean, Google has Project Oxygen, which I think started in 2008, my apologies. And it
Hmm.
was actually to
Going on for a
initially,
while.
it
Yeah.
still informs their approach to skills within leadership. But ironically, it was actually put in initially to prove that management was not necessary,
Hmm.
middle line management, which I thought was really awesome that that was the assumption. And yet it proved out people with certain attributes, leadership attributes or skills, improved the performance of a team. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, particularly from my stance in a people background. But I love that their assumption was one thing and they proved quite the opposite. And that's quite a long approach now since 2008 to still be informing
Hmm.
leadership and skills development within their organization. So that's a really good one. Um, yeah, look, FSO is doing great work. The Jobs and Skills Commission is doing great work. The government is investing, I think, in the right areas. We have an AI Adopt consortia to look at SMEs, their barriers
Hmm.
to adoption of AI, what we could solve for that. There's a lot of good green shoots, shall I say.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
think we've got a lot of, and perhaps in a few years we'll be able to talk more tangibly about some wonderful actions. We as an organisation, as I mentioned, as others, with the Sophia tool, do help organisations with their skills, understanding the skills of their tech team and those
Hmm.
resources around them. We're yet to sort of move earlier in the solutioning to help their P&C team recruit for or
Mm.
have that being more mainstream. So that would be an area where I think we could see more development in the coming
Yeah.
years.
Um, you mentioned small business as well, and s- Sophia strikes me as something that is obviously very powerful and needed. Um, but is that something that small business can get access to or really can benefit from, given they may not have as sophisticated HR tools or even a HR person? Um,
Well, yes, the answer is yes. So the Sophia framework is easily accessible and it's quite easy price-wise to access it as well through us and potentially others. So the barrier to entry is not high. I think what's valuable in these tools, though, the step that needs to be considered is not just the self-assessment of an individual. We have the ability sometimes to overinflate perhaps our view of our skills or capabilities, but is the assessment of those capabilities.
mhm.
So I could answer some Sophia questions that potentially come out looking like I'm a CIO. I'm not a
Hmm.
CIO, never have been. So the ability to have someone assess those skills, I think, or validate the skills of your own assessment is the critical step. So just
Hmm.
a little bit around self-assessment versus validation of skills is important. But even, I mean, if you are self-assessing, that's at least a start. And then you could say,
Yes.
oh, that's interesting. What roles do I align to? I think another
Hmm.
part of this for the tech sector, David, is an agreement on our occupations framework. Going back
Hmm.
to your prompt engineer discussion, if we have a view or broadly, industry adoption of a occupations framework for tech in Australia, save for those that are headquartered in the US, because they have a different approach to occupations and titles, you would have at least more mobility of labour because at least the roles like for like would have with an occupation you then have for a large or small organisation the skills, attributes, and capabilities within those roles. And again, that can be documented and solved for using an agreed framework like Sophia. So there's
Hmm.
tools and opportunities for us. We probably as an industry need to move towards more similar to the Digital Skills Compact, work together, have a similar lens and potentially move to an occupations framework that the majority of the industry adopts and understands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Fantastic. So, work together, use common language, experiment, stay curious. These are some of the, I guess, things I'm hearing you emphasize a lot in terms of our approach that we need to take in this new era. Now, as we wrap up, I want to ask a final question. This is more of a personal one. This is more, we all have great teachers, great mentors, maybe a previous manager, but it gives us a lot of encouragement to see, what other people have gone through and how they've learned from theirs. So, can you give us, share with us who's been a great teacher or a mentor or a coach that has made a big impact in your life and why?
Great question. I'd say my husband now, but when I was quite young, when I had the occasion to train in Los Angeles with my martial arts, first year I was there for 3 months, I was 20, I think, or 19. And I trained from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. and slept on a floor in the sensei's sort of accommodation with a few other students. And every night we would talk. It was almost like a Socratic experience. You'd discuss
Hmm.
ideologies and mindsets and different things. And I remember one of the questions we were discussing was, what's the strongest muscle in your body? And people are saying, oh, my back or my glutes, or sort of, the discussion moved to, it's your mind. Your ability to kick a piece of wood at the right time, at the right point to break the wood, to hit a bag in the air, whatever it is, that's your mind moving your body as you want it to be. And then that conversation morphed into, what is it, something, the adage in the studio was, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And we unpacked that. And the question framed to me was, well, what did you want to do when you left school? And I said, oh, I'll be a doctor. And
Hmm.
why didn't you? Oh, I didn't get the marks. Isn't there a different pathway? Sure. Why didn't you do it? Well, so you didn't really want to be a doctor. Tell me something you want to do and tell me how you don't think you can get there. And it was really, the whole conversation moved to, you can do whatever you put your mind to if you genuinely
Hmm.
want it hard enough. There is a pathway, there's skills you can learn, there's a course you can do. You just need to want it enough to put in that effort to do it. And that materially changed my mind around what happens in the world and how I can interrelate with it, interact with it. Things like the comment, oh, so and so made me angry. No, you responded to their behavior by feeling angry, and that was displayed in these
Hmm.
behaviors. But no one can control how you react. You choose how you react.
Hmm.
It's a fundamental different ideology. And I learned that about 20, and that was
Hmm.
quite a young age to learn that skill. Perhaps
Hmm.
people learn it earlier. I hadn't learned that at that time. So it
Hmm.
really opened my eyes to, really, I can go after anything I want in my career as long as I put in the hard yards, the hard work, do the learning. So I would have to say my sensei when I was 20 was quite formative and impressionable in relation to the power of what I want to achieve.
That's that is very really really great to hear. Very inspiring, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for sharing that. Um, well, fantastic. Well, that's a good way to end. I guess we started with mindset and the importance of that, getting into that to be able to see the opportunities, and your story about that allowing you to pick all these multiple career paths and get to where you are today, and really now guiding talent through ACS. So thank you for sharing all that. The last segment here, it's a bit of a fun one, plugs.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for you to mention someone, some organization, a thing, maybe whatever you want. Which
Ah.
what do you want to plug, Siobhan?
I was going to plug the Digital Skills Compact, to be honest, and the 20% pledge. I think it's a really fantastic way to look at your talent differently and to perhaps put in ads that don't say a degree and X many years experience, or first job, need local experience. Try and challenge ourselves to think differently about the way we recruit talent, particularly in the tech space, and love the work that the Digital Skills Compact is doing and the contributions of those key partners. So learn more about it. I'm sure you can Google it, and get on board and be a signatory to the 20% pledge would be amazing if you're a business owner.
Fantastic. Thank you. And hopefully our audience will do that. And that sounds like a fantastic initiative, much needed. As for myself, I'm going to plug Alumni. That's my career platform. So for everyone out there, check us out at www.alumly.co, alumly.co. We're looking for early adopters to come and use our service. We make it really, really simple for you to hire early career starters in uni or in TAFE, and on very short, casual jobs that you might have going that would benefit a tertiary student. So check us out, alumni.co.
You should have a little tag against those that don't have a degree and say 20% pledge capable. You could
Yes,
easily pick
absolutely.
talent.
We can connect those two things together.
Yes.
That sounds like a great idea. Um, well, that's it for today. Thank you for Siobhan, and thank you to our audience. We'll see you at our next episode.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David.